Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the GRYD Network's 8 o'clock spot. Our take on the infamous Around the Horn Styles format with the great sports debaters from the GRYD Network and Associates. My name, again, is Alfred Parsard Jr., forever taking over for Bryson and Carver. And introducing this week's panelists, a founder of the GRYD Network and a co-host of Bi-Coastal Baseball, which airs every Monday here on the GRYD Network, Mr. Mike Guido.
Massive game 2 for us right now, Alfred, because Cavs right now leading by 11 at the half against Indiana right now without Evan Mobley, without Darius Garland, without DeAndre Hunter. I feel pretty good about that. Lot hangs in the balance tonight. And by the way, unfortunately for us, Alfred, no baseball talk tonight, as our illustrious boss, our illustrious leader, Barrington Grant Jr., said, no baseball tonight. It's NBA playoff time.
Yes, my job was threatened this afternoon behind the scenes, but we'll talk about that later. Also, please welcome back to the show, making his second appearance, Kieran. Welcome back, sir.
Thanks for having me on, guys. Excited to be back. Hopefully do a little bit better than I did last time.
All righty. And then finally, I believe he won in his last appearance on the 8 o'clock spot, the defending champion on this go-around, Mr. Dylan Lima.
Hey, how's it going? Always happy to be here. Not happy about the Celtics result, but, we keep pushing.
All right, so we're going to go ahead and show the 8 o'clock spot rules. Every debated topic will have a best take, a second best take, and a third best take. Best take gets you 5 points. Second best take gets you 3 points. Third best take gets you 1 point. We have the comments here. Hold on 1 second. Technical difficulties. All right. The boss is watching. Barry Grant says, "You guys make me sound like a tyrant."
Well, because he is one. What are we talking about here? It's because he is one.
Well, if it looks like a duck and sounds like a duck, it is a duck. All right. We had a little bit of technical difficulty, so I couldn't get the graphics to import, but we're talking all NBA playoffs on this edition of the 8 o'clock spot. Our first topic: which game 1 upset was more of a shock to you? The Knicks beating the Celtics in overtime or the Nuggets beating the Thunder? Mike Guido, we'll start with you.
I know that, I live in New York, and, everybody that lives in New York hates my guts because they think I'm a flat-out Knick hater. But I do think it was the Knicks upset over Boston. I thought that was the series, I think, that was going to be the most lopsided, and now I'm kind of changing my tune in a sense of, I really think the Knicks could keep this series close. They really showed in this past game that they can match up with Boston defensively. OG Anunoby was clamping up Jason Tatum all night. Now, here's the thing that I want to bring up as far as this. I think the Celtics are a much better basketball team. I don't think that this is a series that all of a sudden the Knicks turned over on its side and they're all of a sudden going to become the favorites. But I do think that this is a series where the Celtics needed a very, very poor shooting night for the Knicks to remain in this game in a close way, right? Like Jason Tatum was 7 for 23. He was 4 for 15 from 3. Jaylen Brown was 7 for 20 from the field. He was 1 for 10 from 3. Derek White was 6 for 18 from the field and was 5 for 16 from 3. They took a trillion threes and made 10 of them. It really was a poor shooting night for the Celtics. And that's kind of what I expected from this series, was that the Celtics would have to play so far down from their expectations that would be the only reason the Knicks would have a chance in this. But again, the Knicks showed last night that they can match up defensively fairly well. So if they can remain around the same level of efficiency that the Celtics can, there's a possibility. Again, I would still say Celtics in 6, Celtics in 7, but there's a real possibility that the Knicks could shock the world. So that's again, for most shocking upset of the first games of this round of the playoffs, I think the Knicks beating the Celtics was really something to watch.
All right, so Mike Guido going with the Knicks. Kieran, I know you're not the biggest NBA fan in the world, but which of the two upsets in the second round yesterday shocked you more? Denver beating the Thunder or the Knicks beating the Celtics?
Well, even though I'm not following the NBA as much, you can't be from New York like I am and not hear about the Knicks. So I obviously knew everything about the game going on last night, and I did end up watching a decent portion of it. And it's a shame that Mike went before me because he said pretty much everything that I was going to say from what I saw. Like the more shocking upset is the Knicks beating the Celtics last night, and it honestly just kind of comes from like a number standpoint. The Celtics were minus 800. It's a 2-3 matchup in the series, and they're minus 800 to win. They were minus 800, to win the series. They're still minus 340 to win the series, even after losing game one, down 1-0, still minus 340 to win the series. I don't know what the Nuggets Thunder were, but I'm almost positive it isn't anywhere near that. And I mean, Mike also said it best. Like the Celtics shot, it was, I know the exact number, it was 25%. They were 15 for 60. 63s is a lot of threes. But on the same like page, to defend my Knicks, if I want to call them that a little bit, the Knicks were 54% from the line last night too. So like with how bad the Celtics were efficiently, the Knicks also were as well. Now, do I think, like, I initially thought it was going to be Celtics in 5. Now, I guess I think I'm Celtics in 6. Like, I think the Knicks will get one more maybe, but it's going to take the big reason it's a bigger upset than the Nuggets and the Thunder is because I think the Nuggets can just genuinely play with the Thunder. I think that they're talented enough. They have a former MVP. They have a good supporting cast around them. I know it's not good enough as what it was. I know they fired the coach before the playoffs, was a little bit odd, but they just won a series, so maybe that was good for them. So I just think that if the Knicks are going to win this series or even win another game, it's going to take a historically bad shooting performance from the Celtics along with or like a pretty competent shooting performance / like exponentially good performance from the Knicks. So I just think that I still don't really think the Knicks have much of a shot is really why I think it. So I would say the Knicks over the Celtics was way more shocking for me personally yesterday.
All righty. And Dylan, your take. Which game one yesterday had the more shocking result to you?
Look, as a residential Celtics fan here, I could have never been more disgusted with how awful the Celtics played at that second half. Well, first off, they were up by 20 in the third quarter. Time and time again do I see the Celtics have a strong lead and then they just shoot themselves out of games. They were just settling for threes early in the shot clock, time and time and time again. And I know we're like in this era of basketball where 3-pointers are king, 3 are more than 2. So if you just make your 3-pointers, no matter what, you're gonna win. But there has to be a time where there has to be a time where Joe Mazzulla has to sit down these guys and be like, hey, you're not even making your wide open shots. It's one thing if you're making wide open shots and you're missing contested shots, just keep on shooting, keep on chucking. But it's like you have to find the shots. You have to be able to get the layups, get the mid range. Jason Tatum, he was 0 for 7 in that fourth quarter. I was watching him dribble the air out of the basketball like he was Luka Doncic and just taking ridiculous shots. Like just stuff that like when he's hot looks amazing and fun and just like, oh wow, it's amazing he knocks that shot down. But when he's clanking them off the side of the rim, when he's from the top of the key, it's just like I don't want to see that. I'm like I like. There's just been so many times where Tatum could easily just drive to the hoop, dunk the ball, at least get a foul, get some free throws. Like they barely even went to the line last night. And the 45 missed threes are the most in a playoff game ever. 45 missed threes. They weren't even shooting well in the first place when they were up by 20. Like, it's one thing if they're shooting well and all of a sudden when ice cold, they were shooting awful the entire game. They just kind of just has to reach the point where, like, everybody expected the Celtics to be favorites. It would be, two people before me said that ad nauseum how much they're the favorites. But they had that game well in reach to win. All they had to do was just not lose. And they just choked it and choked it and choked it. And they were just full on panic. Like at least in the Nuggets and Thunder game, in my opinion, Jokic is still the best player in the NBA. Usually when you have the best player in the series, you always have a shot to win. And when he puts up 44 points, 23 rebounds, 6 assists, like, I'm sorry, but no one on the Thunder can answer that. And the Nuggets are a cohesive team enough, especially when a lot of those players are still left over from when they won the championship 2 years ago, where, they could reasonably take on this Thunder team, albeit they've had such a, historically dominant year. But considering that the Celtics are defending champions, they have a way deeper team. They have all of the tools where they could have easily won this game and we wouldn't even be having this topic right now. And they just choked it all. They couldn't even take the easy shots. They were just all standing around and just chucking and chucking and chucking. And they, quite frankly, didn't deserve that win. Now, I still think the Celtics would easily hand this series. I don't think that's a surprise. But it's just absolutely awful in all standards.
Wow, I gotta say I am shocked nobody had the Denver Nuggets beating the Thunder in the first round in Game 1 as their surprise, because if I was answering this question, that would have been me. But let's go to the comments really quickly. As far as who's chiming in, Barry Grant Jr. again. The Knicks did their job. All they have to do is split in Madison Square Garden, and all bets are off. Well, you know what they say about stealing Game 1s. I'm going to go ahead and give best take to Dylan. You were the only one who mentioned that the Celtics were up late by 20 points. They let the Knicks come back, tie it into overtime, and eventually win. We got another comment here. My good friend Clint Alexander says Tatum is not good. Oh my God. He is a Knicks fan, so I would expect him to say that. I'm going to give second best take to Mike. Very valid points. And Kieran, I got to give you 1 point only because even though you did bring up the Vegas betting odds, the Thunder were a heavier favorite in their matchup than the Celtics were over the Knicks. But anytime a heavy money line favorite at minus 800 loses, that's still not good. All right, sticking with it on this all NBA playoff edition of the 8 o'clock spot, we're going to go over to the Cleveland Cavaliers and Pacers series with Darius Garland, Hunter, and Evan Mobley all out tonight and probably questionable the rest of the series. Can the Cavaliers bounce back and win their series with the Pacers? Dylan, I'll start with you.
Just to keep it short, yes. I think they're still the better team in this series. Pacers do match up with them pretty well. Mobley definitely, even if he's only, I think he doesn't have a serious injury. He'll probably play for the majority of the series. And right now, if I'm not mistaken, the Cavaliers are up anyways. They still have the better shooters. They're still very lengthy because even like Ty Jerome, who's a six-man of the year candidate, has been nothing short of phenomenal. Max Strus, when he's hot, he could just rain threes. You got Sam Morrill, who's been coming out of nowhere and has been scoring well too. And look, they're still headed by Donovan Mitchell, who's pound for pound, probably like as far as a pure scorer, he's probably one of the best pure scorers. Like I wouldn't consider him a playmaker. I wouldn't consider him a good defender at all. But he's just someone that just has a knack to just getting to the rim, getting his shots, and he's just overall just a better difference maker. When I look at that Pacers team, I think they have an all-around team. They have a solid team where if they're all firing and on all cylinders, they're capable of pushing the Cavaliers far, like into a deep series. But Halliburton is just inconsistent. Pascal Siakam is just I don't trust him enough to really be a solid number two. I like Miles Turner a lot, but I still think that Jared Allen is still a better big, and especially when you pair him with the D point Evan Mobley when he is healthy. I think the Cavaliers should handle the series pretty well. The Pacers did shock them game one, of course. But I think that was again more of just an all around effort where everybody was playing well. When when Halliburton isn't, doing well and they're lacking on offense, the Cavaliers can just rain on them time and time again. I think the only possibility of the Pacers winning this series would be if Evan Mobley's out long term, because then Miles Turner can take over. Then they could all fall in line where just like having that big defensive piece gone, the Pacers can just get hot and they could take over. But it would still have to be a long series regardless. Cavaliers are still gonna win games whether or not Mobley plays. And I'm not high on Garland, so he's not really someone that I'm too particularly worried about whether he plays or not. I do like DeAndre Hunter, but he's more of a bench guy anyways. So I think the Cavaliers have more than enough to be able to win this series regardless.
Okay. Kieran, your take on the Cavs and Pacers series. Do you think these injuries for the Cavs are going to cost them the series?
I'm not sure if it's going to cost them the series, but I wouldn't be that casual about saying that they're definitely going to win. And I mean, the Pacers they're a tough team to play in the playoffs, man. They just handled the Bucks and Giannis really, really well. And like I saw them, I'm pretty sure it was last year, when they played the Knicks in the playoffs, and they were pretty tough to deal with as well. Last year, 2 years ago, I don't remember when it was exactly, but they're just a tough team to deal with in the playoffs. And they already stole game one in Cleveland, and as the road team, that's all you need to do. You add on top of it now that the Cavs have some pretty tough injuries that they're all not playing tonight, so it's clearly a very serious injury. And listen, yeah, the Cavs they came out today and they got out to a good start. Like the hungry dogs run faster. Like you would have expected them to come out and really try to stun the Pacers, and I mean they did today. They came out and they were up by 17 after the first quarter, but like game's kind of settled down a bit. Like I wouldn't say this one's over. I wouldn't say it's definitely 1-1 yet. And like Pacers can steal this one too with these guys out. It could be real problems for the Cavs. I don't disagree with, like, they're still the better team. They're the more talented team. They're a really good team at home. I would be surprised if they did lose a game like 34-7 at home. Like that kind of speaks for itself. And they won their 2 at home as well in the playoffs. So 36-7 at home. Like they're a really good home playoff team. I'd be really stunned if they lost this one as well. But again, they already lost game one, and these injuries they're nothing to gripe at. I mean, I heard that Garland said that if his injury happened like in January of the regular season, he'd be out like 2 weeks. So like he's going to be playing through pain, but it is the playoffs. Everyone's playing through pain. Everyone's playing through nicks and bruises. So I still think the Cavs should get this done. I think for sure this series is going to go 7. I think it's going to be a very, very good, long, physical battle, and that could be another thing that could hurt the Cavs with these injuries is the fact that it's going to be a physical series and they're going to be banged up to begin with. So I still think that the Cavs can win. I think they're going to bounce back tonight and hopefully hold on to this, but I think it's going to be a long series, and these injuries are going to rear their head one way or another.
Okay, makes sense. And finally, Mr. Mike Guido.
Yeah, you saved the resident Cavs fan for last on this topic. I appreciate that, Alfred. Let me so here's the thing. I view the Pacers Cavs series as a whole very similarly to how I view the Knicks and the Celtics, right? I think the Cavs are a much better team than Indiana. Now, Indiana, I think, is a very scary team. They are the exact kind of team that can get hot at the right time and just blow everybody's doors off. They did it last year. They could do it again this year. Like, it's not something that is totally out of the question. But we saw it in game one. Okay. It was very similar to how the Knicks won last night. The Cavs shot 23% from 3 in game one. They were 9 for 38. The Pacers were 19 for 36. That's 52% from 3. I don't think they're going to do that again in the series, period. Like, I just don't think they're going to end up doing that again. So it took a terrible shooting night from Cleveland for Indiana to beat them at home. Okay. I think that's something that needs to be pointed out here. I think a lot, and I agree with both of the men to my right. On my screen, it's right to left, whatever. I don't care. Whatever. Both of the men to my adjacent, I think that they are both right in the fact that a lot rests on game 2, right? If Indiana steals game 2, that's a really steep hill to climb in the playoffs. That's for any team, that's a really steep hill to climb. But this could be a game where the Cavs can prove that they can win without these guys on the floor, right? Darius Garland has been out for the majority of the playoffs. Evan Mobley, I think that's the most impactful injury. I think he's their second best player. He's their second most reliable scorer. I think he's the best defensive player in the sport. So, like, there's a lot that rides on Evan Mobley being hurt. DeAndre Hunter, obviously big trade acquisition over the trade deadline, 20-point per game scorer and an elite perimeter defender. So, again, these are real players that they're going to need if they want to make a deep run. I think it's very possible that they could still pull out the series, but a lot depends on what kind of personnel they have throughout the rest of the series. I think that's really up in the air. If Evan Mobley misses the entire series, that's a real problem for Cleveland. I think Kieran said it best, right? These are not injuries that you can just like brush off the shoulder. I think Cleveland's a better team either way, but you're going to be running out players that shouldn't necessarily be playing playoff minutes, and that really makes a difference. So I think Cleveland does have a shot, but I think it all pretty much hinders on how many players they have healthy by the time this series runs a little bit deeper.
Yep, and that makes perfect sense. So I'm gonna give the hold on here. Yep, so I'm gonna give Mike the best take. He's in the lead with the 8 points there. You said something very, very critical, that if these injuries do persist, they're going to have to go deeper into their bench. They're going to have to play guys who may not necessarily have seen or even deserve playoff minutes, but they're getting them out of necessity. Kieran, I got to give you the second best take, because you brought up you hit the nail on the head with the injuries being severe enough. Obviously, Cleveland on paper is the better team, but when you're down 3 guys, talent can only take you so far if you're missing key guys. So, and Dylan, of course, great point, but Kieran bringing that up just made it a bit closer. All right, our next topic here, if I can bring up the topic list. All right. All-time great Spurs coach, Hall of Fame basketball coach Greg Popovich has transitioned from coach of the Spurs to president of basketball operations. Of course, he would like to now be known as El Jefe. So, is this the right call, considering that the man has had health issues the last couple of years, just recently recovered from a stroke, as seen in the press conference, can't even move the left side of his body and can't walk without assistance? We saw Manu Ginobili and Tim Duncan helping him up. Right move to make the man president of basketball operations, considering his health. Mike, we'll start with you.
So I'm going to have a very, people will probably yell at me for being super insensitive. But no, I don't think that it's like a bad move for the Spurs to make him president of basketball operations. I don't think that that's like a terrible move. He's obviously very, very smart. He's been around the game forever. And obviously once you get to this age, I guess the notion is like keeping going is, if you keep going, it's better than just sitting there and staying in place and not doing anything, right? Especially for an old guy. So I think that that's positive. What I do think about this, though, and I shouldn't even really be laughing because it's not that funny, but I think this is sort of like, this is sort of an indictment on the position of president of basketball operations. Like, I really think that this could not be, like, this is a bad look for the position itself, simply because Greg Popovich is just an old guy. Like you said, he's suffering through serious medical issues. He can't move half of his body. And again, I hope that he at least can live the rest of his life comfortably, right? At this point, he's an old guy, right? So we're talking about, like, he's really going to go into their front office every single day, make personnel decisions every single day, like, after he just suffered a stroke 3 or 4 days ago. Like, that's, like, I feel like that's kind of, you look at that position that you have in an NBA front office, and you're like, okay, well, if Greg Popovich is doing that job under the condition that he's in, like, what are all the rest of these guys doing? Is it just a figurehead position? Like, is it just, like, what do they actually do? So, like, I might be, like, a super dick for that, but at the same time, I'm thinking to myself, like, am I glad Greg Popovich is still involved in the NBA and involved in the Spurs and everything like that? Absolutely. I 100% support him in doing that. But president of basketball operations, just days after you suffered a stroke, I think that's kind of like, okay, it seems like a figurehead position to me without much real responsibility going his way.
Well, folks, if the AARP is going to come after somebody, they're coming after Mike.
Coming after me, no doubt.
Kieran, what's
Prejudice against the elderly. Here we go.
Kieran, your take on Popovich getting the president of basketball operations, good or bad, considering his health issues?
If the question is just is the move for Greg Popovich the right call to move to the front office and remove from coaching after having a stroke, the obvious answer that's screaming and yelling at everyone is yes, right? But obviously the guy has got a crazy, crazy love of the game to continue to be doing this and continuing to want to be a part of the organization and better the organization and be a part of the players and the staff and the rest of the organization as a whole, right? But I actually really do like what Mike said, and like it brings up a good point that I think I can bring up. Like there's like the president of basketball operations like is a prestigious name, but there's like times where it can kind of look like a not so prestigious name. And like an example is like aside from this one, we have like the Celtics, like Brad Stevens. It's like, oh, good, young, knows what he's doing in the game, a part of it, like recently a coach, left kind of voluntarily, no help, just guy kind of knows what he's doing. He's built a great team. Like Phil Jackson to the Knicks 10 years ago, not so good, right? So it's like this is like kind of showing or like kind of giving more of that than the latter, than Brad Stevens to the Celtics, if you know what. So it's like, is it good for his health? With unequivocally, yes. Like no doubt about it. But like, is this the right call for the Spurs as an organization going forward? That I'm not so sure about. That a guy who just had a stroke, as great as he is as a basketball mind and a coach, and I'm not sure how great of a move this can be for the organization as a whole. Like it could work out. Like maybe if he recovers, if the stress. This somehow like completely lightens the stress of the load that he's been feeling, then God bless. Then that would be great. But I find that a little hard to believe, honestly. But we'll see.
All right, and Dylan, you have an issue with Popovich being El Jefe of the Spurs?
You know, Mike and Kieran brought up some great points. But I'm gonna take the opposite stance here because it's one of those things where it's not. I don't think it's a physically demanding job. I mean, look, you're sitting in an office, you're fielding calls. He's gonna be strictly just on the side of making sure that going to be doing trades, free agency, and he's made it known that he wants to make sure Victor Wembanyama is on good footing. That's why he stayed the head coach for as long as he did. He sees how special this guy is, and he wants to make sure at the very least that he's going to have a successful career with the Spurs. His mind is unparalleled as far as basketball players, and I'm assuming that the Spurs at least vetted his mental health to make sure that he's mentally capable, at the very least, of using that position. Because, look, I mean, like it definitely isn't a good look when he can't move his left side of his body. Like he's still recovering. He's had, I believe, 2 strokes in the past calendar year. So again, not good. Definitely not a good look. But as long as he's not like Nico Harrison and trades away Victor Wembanyama for a pack of quarters, I think he'll stay around the team for a little while until he just can't anymore. But if you ask me, I still would rather have Greg Popovich than many of these other minds that are in the NBA. There's been so many poorly run teams, and the president of basketball operations is such a hit or miss job that I'd rather give it to someone like Popovich, who's been heavily loyal to the Spurs for 20 years now. He's won all these championships. Like this is more of a sign of respect and just a continuation of the process of right now they have De'Aaron Fox, they have Victor Wembanyama. They're on the cusp of being a very special team. So if Popovich is capable, which I think he's still at least mentally capable of being able to run just the basketball side. Like I don't think he's going to be doing any front office stuff outside of just strictly basketball stuff. And I think he'll have plenty of time. I mean, I know the draft is going to be coming up soon, so that's probably in obviously the off season. So he'll still have some time to recover. And just I think it's just a big part of just not having to stand, not having to be yelling, not having to be going through the constant traveling that head coaches and personnel that have to be with the team typically are. Like, he could just stay local to San Antonio. He can make the moves that he has to do. And this all hinges on assuming that he's still mentally there, that he's still mentally sharp, and that he still has the love for the game, which I still think he does. So it's definitely a tough look in this moment, especially with all the health concerns. But I think he'll be able to recover. And I think unless he just starts trading everybody away and starts making these crazy questionable moves, I think he's capable of being the president for at least a couple of years before it'll be finally time for him to retire and actually give it to someone that will be able to do it for the long term.
Okay, well said. I'm going to go ahead and score this with Kieran, actually, with the best take, because you said something that is appealing. Sometimes this particular role of president of basketball operations, sometimes you get a guy who does a great job and he gets all the praise, but then when you get a guy who does a bad job, he gets thrown out unceremoniously. And my only thing is, if a guy like Pop doesn't do a good job, especially because he did have a stroke recently, so we don't know how his performance is going to be. How are they going to handle firing him if it ever came to that? So that's a good point there. I'm going to give second best take to Dylan, because you did say something, though, that caught my attention. They obviously had to vet him to make sure he was somewhat okay to do the job before they gave him the job. And the last take, Mike Guido, you, sir, need to be nicer to the senior citizens. I couldn't give you best take for that, sir. I am sorry to all the grandfathers who watch this program. All righty. The NBA draft lottery is Monday. A lot of people in the past have had an issue with the tumbler and the selection of 1, 2, and 3. A lot of people say that the system is archaic. There's been many outrage, many years about the NBA draft lottery. Should the draft lottery system be changed, like how they've done the All-Star game, the play-in, the playoffs, and many other things throughout the history of the league? Mike Guido, we start with you.
If by changed you mean abolished, then yes, I think it should. I think it's the dumbest. I think it really is. Next to the Ghost Runner in Major League Baseball, I really do think it's like one of the dumbest things in sports. It really is. It's brutal. Because I am I guess I'm a contrarian when it comes to this. Like I'm not, like, I don't hold the popular opinion. I actually think that tanking is good for sports. I really do. Like, I think tanking, if you're a team like the Utah Jazz who just flat out suck, right? You're a team like the Philadelphia 76ers when they were doing Trust the Process a number of years ago and they drafted 3 straight big men. Like, I actually think that that's good for the sport. Let the bad teams draft good players so they cannot be bad anymore. Like, I really think it's that simple. It really is. Like, that, to me, it is that simple. They're the only league in the world, obviously outside of the NHL, right? But the NBA is the only league in the world that does a system like this. It is the most brutal thing in the world. I hate it. It's so bad, because think about, like, if you're a team that goes 41-41, right, and you don't make the playoffs, and yeah, you've got like a 1.3% chance of getting the number 1 pick, and then some other percent chance of getting a top 3 pick or whatever. Like, what's the point in that? Like, I don't. Then they get it, and then you end up with, LeBron being drafted by the, by the Thunder. Like, what are we doing? Like, it makes no. Do you realize that the Thunder apparently have a chance of getting Cooper Flagg? Like that to me is bizarre. It's bizarre. Like, I really think that as far as like the draft lottery is concerned, and I'm one of those people that like genuinely believes that like you can get good players anywhere in the draft. You don't need to have the number 1 pick, but you're then penalizing bad organizations, right? Or you're penalizing bad teams for being bad. Like, okay, like that. So then they'll never be good. The Utah Jazz will just be terrible forever. Like, I don't think that that's good for the league. I don't think that that's good for like isolating teams and isolating fan bases. I genuinely think if you're the worst team in the league, you should have the number 1 pick. Forget about tanking. Forget about all that crap. Just give good players to bad teams so they cannot be bad anymore, period. That's, again, I would abolish the entire thing.
All right, so Mike Guido does not want an NBA draft lottery moving forward. Dylan, your opinion, draft lottery, should they change it, get rid of it, or leave it how it is?
I mean, look, I feel like the NBA draft lottery has been a part of the draft process for the NBA for a long time now. I do get what Mike's saying, where it does penalize bad teams if they just get unlucky. But let's not forget the reason why the draft lottery odds changed was because of the Sixers abusing the system. And they never did anything with all those picks anyways. They were purposely bad, and the best pick they got out of all their number one picks is Joel Embiid. That was the only lasting star. And I think that if anything, they should go back to the old odds and they should make it a spectacle. Because I think that's the one thing that the NFL does great. With the whole draft process, with the combine, leading up to the draft, all the talk about it, and then the ultimate draft, it is like, it's just a whole spectacle. It gives people that are NFL fans during the off season a thing to look forward to. With the NBA, that's not quite the case. The lottery used to be a televised thing where they would show the ping pong balls or it would be the envelopes, and there would be a drama. There'd be a sense of like where like you do have the hope where like let's just say the Atlanta Hawks, right? They've always been a middle of the line team. They've never been too good. They've never been bad enough to get a number one pick. But you know, if you're a Hawks fan, you end up getting a high pick with low odds. You kind of have a sense of joy, and like it's like a drama. There's kind of like a suspense and a drama when you see a team like the Pelicans when they got Zion Williamson. They weren't one of the higher odd teams; they were one of the lower odd teams, and they were still able to get that high pick, and that was a big deal. And people actually liked that. Um, but I don't like how they don't show the process anymore. They just only kind of do like a brief little thing where they show how all the results happen, all the probabilities, and it doesn't have the same oomph that it used to be. Now they like if they could just revert back to making it a show, making it something for people to look forward to, and add that suspense and drama, I think that would give the NBA some more buzz during the offseason. Same with the draft. The draft and the draft lottery should be a bigger deal than what it is. And I still like it. It's still something that I think is fun, and you know, bad teams are going to be bad regardless. We've seen the Pistons get how many number one picks with all of their bad records throughout the years, and now they're in the playoffs. Same with the Magic. Like, these teams were always bad, and now with all their picks, they're able to be playoff contenders. So I just think that it should just be more of a show. It should be more of a spectacle and have that drama, because right now I feel like people are just looking at the lottery and be like, why do I care about it? They're going to just show the results, and then that's it. And then you kind of just see what happens where the draft shakes out. There's not the same kind of fun that we've had previously. So I'm not fully out on the lottery. I just think it could be more transparent. It could be more fun for the NBA fans to have something during the off season.
So you want it as an event like how it used to be?
Yeah, without a doubt. I think that would do a lot more for the NBA, because it's not totally throwing out the tradition that they've had for decades now, and it would just I think it would only help with like the optics and how the NBA looks.
Okay, fair enough. And Kieran, the last but not least, your take on the draft lottery.
I mean, I've kind of just come to accept that the lottery isn't going anywhere, and it's kind of just only expanding everywhere. It's here for the NBA. It's here for the NHL. It just happened last night, and the MLB has one now too. So like, I hope it doesn't make its way to the NFL, but at this point, who knows? But if the question is like, what can the NBA do differently to be like to draw more of an audience? Like, they should probably start copying what the NHL does, man. Like the NHL last night, I have no idea what they did or how the numbers behind it worked, but they had me standing in my living room jumping for joy when the Islanders got the number one pick. A number 13 popped up in a lottery ball, and I was jumping all around. There's content all over the NHL, all over the Islanders' Twitter from people reacting to it, so it was like a bit of a spectacle. I know the NBA used to do that. I don't really know why they don't anymore, but it definitely could help them in that regard. And I don't think it's like unquestionable to say that the NBA, or unfathomable to even say that the NBA would question some stuff that the NHL is doing, because they're already, I think, considering the Four Nations this year was incredible as a hockey guy. It was incredible. And the NBA is already talking about doing something similar to it next year. And like, it would make sense for them to do it too. Like, the USA is the best team in the world still. But we just saw in the Olympics, like, we're not going to just run away with these other countries they've kind of caught up to us by now. So that if these players bought into it, it could be an entertaining all-star break that could benefit the league, the players, everybody. So I just think that there's opportunities for the league to be had, and they're kind of whiffing on them. And they used to have these incredible things, and you're seeing it in a sport that you do rival with, and it's the NHL is thriving right now. I don't know much about, like, if the NBA is as much, but the NHL is thriving right now, and it's like they should definitely start taking some stuff, because when the NBA was above the NHL, they were doing the same stuff. The NHL was copying from the NBA, and it kind of got them to where they are now. So I just think if they took a page maybe out of the NHL books and did something that they were doing last night with the lottery, and again made it a bit of a spectacle and a show again, it could really help their ratings.
All righty. So we got one comment here. Barry Grant Jr. still watching. He says, Islanders, baby. It's about damn time. As an owner of a Matt Barzal jersey myself, I heavily agree with that statement. All right. So I'm going to give best take to Dylan, because Dylan wants the conspiracy out of this thing. He wants it televised so that there's less of a chance of anybody calling collusion. I'm going to go ahead and give Kieran the second best take, because they can use the draft lottery for content. Even though the NBA doesn't need views, it's still going to generate dollars for them. And Mike, I got to give you the worst take, only because you support tanking in sports, sir, which I feel is a terrible thing. All righty. I know that they did not want baseball on this show, but Mr. Grant, if you are watching, I'm adding a baseball question because I'm hosting this show and I can do so. All right. On the spur of the moment, MLB has released the early MVP votes. In the American League, Aaron Judge has a unanimous 46 first-place votes. Nobody else has any. But in the National League, Pete Alonso of the Mets is leading with 17 first-place votes. Trailing him by one vote with 16 is Fernando Tatis Jr. And surprisingly, Shohei Ohtani is in third with 8 first-place votes. Kyle Tucker has 4. Out of those 4 gentlemen, my question to you, the panelist of this group tonight, which of those 4 is the most likely? Which one of these 4 at the end of the season can take the MVP of the National League? I'll start with the host of Bi-Coastal Baseball himself, Mike Guido. Do you think any of the 4 or nobody in the 4?
So I think it would take a lot, I think, for Pete Alonso to win it. I think it would take a lot. And that's not me being a Met hater, but I do think that that's some pretty stiff competition when it comes to, some of the other stuff, defensive metrics and base stealing. And, I think a lot of that is going to factor in as well. I do think that the favorite is probably Ohtani, right? Because you're going to get to a point. He's going to have a 950 to 1,000 OPS by the time July or August comes around, and then he's going to start pitching again. So, if his ERA is 2.5 through the last 2 months of the season, then, it's just going to end up being him, giving him the award. But I do want to say, Kyle Tucker, it has been remarkably good this season. Remarkably good. Okay, so 953 OPS to start the year, 9 homers, 30 RBIs for the Cubs, hitting 284. His first year in Chicago, maybe his only year in Chicago, might be earning himself a $450, $500 million contract by the time this season comes around. But I do think he's had a great season. But I do think, as far as the likelihood of it, I think Shohei Ohtani is unless there's voter fatigue with him, where you get tired of giving him the award. It's kind of like LeBron in the NBA. People just didn't want to keep giving him the award. But like Ohtani's OPS is 983. Again, 9 homers. He's playing for the overwhelming best team in baseball. I don't care what anybody says. I don't care what the records say. He's playing for the overwhelming best team in baseball right now. It would not surprise me if Ohtani, like I said, if his OPS is 950 to 1,000, between 950 and 1,000 by the time August comes around, and then he pitches to a 2.5 ERA, then, it's going to be a no contest sort of race. I think Ohtani's the easy favorite right now.
All right, Kieran, what is your take on this? Alonso, Tatis, Ohtani, Tucker, or nobody of the 4 at the end of the season for NL MVP?
Well, as a Mets fan, I think it is a bit haterish, Michael, to say that it's almost impossible for Alonso to continue what he's doing. Now, do I think that Pete Alonso is going to be hitting 350 in August or September? Probably not. Probably not. Do I think he could be hitting going into September like 300 and have 40 home runs on a team that's going to win 95 to 100 games? Yeah, I definitely can. And like if he's putting up numbers like that, he's definitely in the race for it. And you mentioned defense. Pete Alonso has been a phenomenal defender this year. He's been steadily improving as a first baseman. He is a better first baseman than Fernando Tatis is as an outfielder. I know there's metrics to support that. This question got brought up 2 seconds ago, so I don't have those metrics right now to support that, obviously. But I know that they're out there somewhere. They are out there somewhere, okay? So I do think that matters right now. I mean, him and Tatis were neck and neck right now, so it makes sense. It is hard, like you said, though, to completely overlook Ohtani. He is going to start pitching again. Like he plays for the best team in baseball. Yada, yada, yada. I'm not going to just repeat everything that you said, but it is interesting. And I mean, Kyle Tucker, man, that guy's really good. And he could hang around. But at the end of the day, we're 35 games in for some, like 40 for some, I think, not even, right? So it's still we're not even at the quarter point of the season yet, 25% of the way. So a bunch of stuff could change from here on out. But if it's just these 4 guys, like, we're just looking at these 4 guys, I think it's Pete Alonso's to lose as good as anybody's at this point, honestly.
All right. And Dylan, your take. Who of the 4 you think has a realistic shot to win the MVP, or none of them?
I'm actually amazed no one said Aaron Judge.
No, we're talking National League.
Oh, you're talking nationally. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, no worries.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I just think it's Ohtani madness still. I think it's just one of those things with him that he still somehow, some way, he's just like he's just the best player. Like he is so clutch. He's consistently hitting bombs time and time again. The way he hits the ball, he's still like highest velocity hitter on the Dodgers team by far. So more often than not, when he's hitting the ball, he's clobbering it. And I think he just has that potential where we could see another 40 home run season out of him. If he could still hit, consistent numbers that he's been hitting over the past couple of years of the MVP, I think it'll be his. I think with P. Alonso, it's definitely tough because just as a pure hitter, he's been very good. But he also has his tendencies to have cold times where he just really just can't hit the ball at all. And in Tatis with him, it's like he's very good now, but he's very prone to injuries. If he gets another injury, like how he's typically prone to do, he's going to be well out of that race. So I just do think that, considering consistency, considering how many games Ohtani plays on a year-to-year basis, and then adding that he has the potential to come back as a pitcher, you might as well just rename it the Shohei Ohtani Award, because I can't see how anyone else can pry that award away from him, unless if a P. Alonso just has a consistently monstrous season and like surpasses 50 home runs. Because I mean, again, it's just watching Shohei Ohtani play, man. It's just like he's just one of those types of players where even if he has like his average season, that still surpasses like 99% of players in the whole MLB. So I think it's just one of those things that I will gladly take the defending MVP until someone else overtakes him. And I can't see anyone over the long term of the season consistently put up the numbers and put up the stats that Shohei does. And then again, if his pitching is right there where he can give you a couple quality starts, then it's not even a conversation anymore. So I mean, I know the Dodgers are struggling, and they are in the middle of a very difficult division right now. So if the Dodgers just have like a tough season, then that may be the biggest reason why Otani doesn't get the award. But if the Dodgers play as how we expect them to play and be the best team in baseball, like how they have been over the past couple years, then it's got to be Shohei. I don't think there's anyone else that can reasonably win an award. And I know that typically MVP exhaustion does hit after getting voted that award a couple times, but what he does on the baseball field, no one else can do right now. So give me Shohei.
Okay. Let me just go back to the comments here. Our good friend from the Boston Sports Summit, Tim, says the fact the Islanders got the number 1 pick goes to show how much of a joke the lottery is. All right. Well, he is a Bruins fan, so he is entitled to feel that way. All right. So I'm going to give the best take to Kieran, who's also going to advance to our final round. I think a lot of people are sleeping on Pete Alonso this year because, number one, coming into today, he leads the National League in both average, OPS, and doubles. So not easy to do there. I'm going to give second best take to Mr. Mike Guido because if Otani does come back and pitch and he does have a sub-2 ERA, that definitely should put him in the conversation for an MVP. But like you said, it might just be a case of they don't want to keep giving him the award. What is he, like 3 straight now? And then even though I gave him the worst take of the segment, moving on to face Kieran in the final round will be Dylan. A lot of points like Mike Guido. You just had Guido beat on points. Mike, anything you want to say before we move on to the final round?
I just want to say, and I'm not accusing you of the same corruption that I accused Bryson Carver of, but of course, the guy who says that Pete Alonso could win the MVP, he gets the best take. I just want to throw that out there. I don't want to say anything, Alfred, but I just think that that's a fact that people should know now.
Being accused of collusion, that's a new one. That's a new low for you, Mike. Maybe if you hadn't bashed the senior citizens.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm bashing the elderly and I'm accusing you of collusion. Man, it's been a long time for me on this show.
Mike Guido, ladies and gentlemen, who will rejoin us at the final round. Really on a new level here. All right, so it's the final round. We'll pull up the final round rules. One topic, only one winner. The best take gets 10 points. So only one man can win. Right now, the score is Kieran in the lead, 17 to Dylan's 15. The question is, what do you think is the biggest NBA playoffs upset in history and why? We'll start with Dylan first.
So for me, I think the biggest upset was the Detroit Pistons in the NBA Finals against the LA Lakers. That was a series that the Lakers, they had back-to-back championships. They actually had a three-peat. I'm lying. They actually had a three-peat. They missed a year because of the Spurs winning. But the Lakers were just on such a tear, a dynasty tear, where they just looked invincible. And then too, they were acquiring veterans like Karl Malone and Gary Payton, where of course when you include Kobe Bryant and Shaquille O'Neal, they just looked like their own all-star team all by themselves. And when you look at that Pistons team, they were a defensive juggernaut, and that's where they made their bread was block shots, steals between Ben Wallace, Rip Hamilton, and then Chauncey Billups was as cold as anyone could possibly be during that playoff run. And then the Pistons too, they haven't had much success since, and they never really had much success before then. That was like a true like one-off run where I saw where those Pistons were just special, and they just destroyed an all-time great team with those Lakers. And ultimately to end up being the end of that Lakers team, Shaq moved on to the Heat where he ended up winning a championship. Kobe, of course, stayed with the Lakers for the rest of his career and won a few anyways. But that was the straw that broke the camel's back as far as all the controversy and all the rivalry stuff between Shaq and Kobe during that time, where that Detroit team is definitely one of those teams that just, like, there's a true David versus Goliath moment where, I don't think any other NBA finals could really, or any series in general really could really stand up to that. Just on the biggest stage, going against an amazing team and just taking that series. And, also during that time too, there's a lot of ref corruption and people were talking about ref favoritism with the Lakers and getting a lot of calls that maybe shouldn't have gone their way. So not only did the Pistons take on all of that, but coming up in the clutch and winning it is definitely by far the biggest upset.
All right, and Kieran, biggest NBA playoff upset in history.
I think this one might come a little bit out of nowhere because I feel like it's one that I feel like it's not talked about very much. The 2011 NBA playoffs, and I'm not talking about the finals. I'm talking all the way about the first round where we had the 8 seed Memphis Grizzlies upsetting the 1 seed San Antonio Spurs and Pop, who in their time under Greg Popovich lost in the first round the same amount of times they won the finals. So it's a pretty tough thing to do. It was an 8-1. It was when the Grizzlies had Zebo, Mike Conley, and Marc Gasol. That was their big three. And I believe it was right before this was the year before the Spurs got Kawhi and started that kind of regime of the Spurs. But they still had Tim Duncan. They still had, I believe, Danny Green. They still had Manu Ginobili. They still had Tony Parker, as far as I'm concerned. So, like, an 8-1 is always a pretty crazy upset. And, I mean, those playoffs as a whole, with Dallas going all the way to the finals, beating Miami in the championship, those playoffs as a whole were crazy. And it started off in this first round with, I mean, Marc Gasol went him with 21 points in this first round. So he was crazy. Their run did end right after to the Thunder, but just seeing that, I remember watching these playoffs and being like, as a teenager, being like, these are absolutely wild. And seeing the Spurs with Pop and Tim Duncan, and that they were just a staple of being in the playoffs and being in the conference semifinals pretty much every single year until like COVID. It was a shock to see them go down to Memphis, who they would seemingly always play in the playoffs and typically always beat. So for me, that's what I'd say.
All right. So it's going to be winner take all. And while I do agree with Dylan on the fact that nobody expected Detroit to beat the Lakers, but you got to give Detroit credit that year. They did win the East. I got to give it to Kieran, who will be our winner this week, because nobody expected the 8 to beat the 1, especially with the Spurs, who would later go on to win a championship just 3 years later and go to back-to-back finals a couple years after that loss. Kieran, it's your first victory on the 8 o'clock spot. Anything that you would like to say?
Yeah, I'm surprised, honestly, with a heavy NBA day. I guess I showed my historical ball knowledge, pulling out the 2011 first round series when me and Mike would be at his house playing NBA 2K and playing with guys like Kalena Azubuike, James White, right, Mike? So we
Yep.
that old school ball knowledge coming out to help me there. That was when I was a big time NBA guy. It was that 2010 to 2015-ish range when the Knicks had Melo. That was when I really got into it, but I just haven't been following the league as much since. But yeah, happy to have showed my ball knowledge here today in front of everyone.
Well, we learned 2 things. Kieran can adapt to any subject, and Mike Guido does not like the elderly and prefers tanking in sports.
Oh, man. Just catching strays all day. By the way, I do want to point out that while I do respect the opinions of both of my co-panelists, they both did not provide the correct answer when it came to the greatest upset.
All right, easy time. There. It is the Cavs, but
it is 1,000%. The 2016
it's low hanging fruit.
What?
It's low hanging fruit. It was too easy. You have to pull the ball knowledge out from 2011 first round, Michael. Come on.
Well, listen, clearly, because I wasn't even there. I couldn't participate in this round because I did not have the ball knowledge to know that. But 2016 Cavs, LeBron James, taking down the 73-9 Golden State Warriors after they were down 3-1 in that series. That is, listen, crying LeBron will tell you that is the greatest upset, maybe in sports. That is the greatest upset ever.
Well, I guess everybody will say that Kieran got the upset tonight with the win. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been another 8 o'clock spot. We'll see you next Tuesday. I thank all of our panelists for participating, and we will see you soon. All right, great show, fellas.